Okay, everybody, I'm going to show you how to make a plate with a plate. So I got all these paper plates. You guys will be able to come get one yourself. And this is going to be made using this mold and a slab of clay. So I already rolled out my slab. You don't really need to see me do that because you should have done this several times already. Now, my slab is just itty bitty, teeny tiny bit too small. So I'm gonna go ahead and do my little trick. Just kind of stretch it out just a little bit. Aha, look at that. Perfect. Okay, now important business before I put it on my plate is to get rid of all this canvas texture that I have on there, because canvas texture is bad. It looks sloppy, it looks messy. It doesn't help you have nice, clean, finished work, which a lot of people said they were interested in working on. So I'm taking just a very lightly wet sponge, just the tiniest bit damp, and just sort of smoothing out all that canvas texture. Also, if there's any cracks from rolling out my slab, then that's good. Gets rid of them. Looks pretty nice. So I'm gonna put my plate right here, flip that over, and kind of help my slab fit into my plate. Going real gentle, just kind of working my way around. Want to make sure I don't tear anything, but I'm just kind of stretching it out a little bit just by patting it down. And if I can feel any kind of loose parts right here that aren't in contact with the plate, then I can keep kind of lifting up, press it down, help that little stretch a little bit. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. Okay, and I can kind of go back, tap around my rim of the plate. Just barely. I might press that down a little bit just to get that over the edge there so I'm not missing anything. Got a little crack, I'm just gonna smooth that out, no big deal. Okay, so now what I need to do, one thing I want to do for sure, smooth out my canvas texture, because that's not good. Canvas texture is bad, looks sloppy, looks lazy, and you definitely don't want to take a chunk out of your plate with your fingernail like I just did. All right, I'm not going to worry about this part too much because I'm going to flip it over again, because I want to get rid of all that. Now, there's obviously several ways you can do that. You have access to your specific tools that you have. You can use your metal rib, which is probably not great for cutting that. You can use your loop tool, which I had sitting here a minute ago. There it is. You can take your loop tool and trim that all the way around. I'm a fan of using my skewer, and also I had a thought about using a push pin to kind of go through and do all this. So I'm going to try that out. I am not going to press my push pin all the way down to the canvas, because then I just feel like I'm going to score my canvas. I don't need that. But I want to see if I can do this and then just peel up what's left. Okay, already went all the way around. Hey, look at that. All right, so I got a plate in a plate, and I got a pretty rough edge up here, which is kind of gnarly. So I'm gonna go back to my sponge, get rid of my canvas texture that I left behind, smooth out the rough cuts right here from my push pin. Just trying to get rid of canvas texture, crummies, little bits and pieces, not using too much pressure, and then keeping it nice and clean. Okay, and lastly, you see all those little rough bits there. I'll trim all that stuff off and smooth it out later when it gets to be more leather hard, because I don't want to mess with it right now. I could mess with my shape. Just kind of feeling it out, see if there's any kind of awkward spots, but it seems pretty good right now. So I'm going to let that hang out, and I'm going to wait for it to dry a little bit, and then we'll take it out. And something else I'm going to do is going to be the decorative portion of this plate, but I got to wait for it to dry to show you that. So we're going to wait. Okay, so we are going to go over how to put a coating of slip on the plate, which we will then later use to scratch away certain lines to make a design, which is called Sgraffito. It's a technique used in several art mediums, not just with glazing or surface quality for ceramics, but also in other 2D arts. You might notice this plate looks a little different. That's because it is a different plate from the first one I showed you how to make. And so I went with a little bit of a rougher, more obviously handmade surface quality. So it's a little lumpy and a little irregular, just kind of a different visual aesthetic. And that's okay. So this is slip. Oh, I made a mess. This is slip from Terra Cotta. It's a different type of clay. I dried it out, broke it into a bunch of little chunks, made a lot more liquidy kind of slip from it, and now I'm gonna paint it onto my plate. Something you'll notice about the slip is that it looks nice and smooth and kind of creamy-ish, but it actually has a lot of grit to it. All that grit and stuff, that is called grog. Grog is something that's added to clay to give it some stability, sort of helps hold things together. Now, nice thing is that this stuff is going on nice and smooth. It's a much more potent stain to this other type of clay. I think it stains clothes, but it washes off your hands, it washes off my brush really easily. And because the clay is leather hard, it soaks up a lot of the moisture, and so this slip tends to dry fairly quickly. And because I only want to see this color when this thing gets fired, and I don't want to see any of the bisque from underneath of the regular clay, I don't want to see any of that white, I'm going to wait a minute and let this dry up and then do another coat, because I can kind of see some areas right here That's a little thin right there, but I want this stuff to dry up because the moisture, if like too much moisture gets trapped underneath, then it might not adhere properly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take a break and then finish it up. I'm not gonna show you the second coat, that would be kind of a waste of time, but I will show you the process of scratching away. All right, see you in a second. Okay, my slip is dry. And so now I'm going to demonstrate the Sgraffito technique where you scrape away the terracotta slip and you reveal the clay beneath so that when it's fired, you have this nice rusty orange-brown color on top, and then the white bisque shows through and you get a nice contrast. So there's a couple ways you can do this. There's lots of ways you could do this. A real clay tool is a needle tool that you could use for scraping away, or some other thing with a point to it. Improvised tools from home would be like a push pin. I have a paper clip taped to a paintbrush handle, which I'm gonna work with, or a skewer, probably a toothpick would work. And so we're just gonna go nuts here and see what happens. And too bad there, a pretty decent straight line. I don't really have a plan in mind right now, actually. I'm just kind of going crazy. Oh. So you can see the gray coming through. Making a lot of dust, which I'm gonna do my best not to get near my face. I have no idea if this is actually gonna turn out. Oh, that got messed up, look at that. That looks ugly. Man, look at what I did. Oh, it's not good, but it worked. Okay, so now I can fire that. Try to get rid of some of the little dust in here. I'm gonna fire this, and that's gonna be white, that's gonna be rusty, and then put a clear coat over it, and it's gonna look pretty nice, I think. Even if my lines are not perfect, and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, my 11 pointed star. Ugh, kind of embarrassed. All right, it'll be fine. Okay, we got our plate out of the kiln. Everything looks pretty great. We got a good contrast there of the white bisque coming through the orange, brownish, kind of rusty terracotta look. You can kind of see a little bit right here where it's a little thin and some of that bisque comes through. So I could have done a little better job of putting that up there so y'all can keep that in mind. But a couple of coats did a pretty decent job. So next step is to put a clear coat on it, which will seal everything up. It's gonna make it shiny. It's gonna make this rough texture a little less apparent, and should be a pretty nice piece when we're all done. And I'll film that later. Spoiler alert, I forgot to film the glazing, and that's okay because I didn't do a very good job. There's all these little bubbles and it's kind of cloudy and stuff, and it is just not as good as I would have liked it to be. And you can see some thin spots there that really started to show up when the clear glaze was applied. And because it's very glossy, ooh, that's a little better lighting. You can see the areas where there's just way too much glaze. So we'll make sure that y'all have some proper coaching and thinner glaze to work with. All right, good stuff.